Okay, this was your first problem, right? In your seventh exam sheet work. Okay, we will be answering these uh, problems today. Okay, let's start with this one. A particle moves in the xy plane according to the following parametric equations. So we have here two equations that are in pair. And we have here the first equation is x equivalent to t squared minus 4t. And the other, we have here y equivalent to t cubed minus 3t squared. Then we will just be finding the expression for the first, okay, for the first and the second derivative. So we'll be covering all these first and the second derivative, okay, based on or in terms of the parameter t. Okay, so first, let's try to recall the formula for the derivative of y with respect to x for the given parametric equation. Anong ganit yun, class? We have here yung dy.
dy over
Okay.
dt.
Okay, we have here dy over dt.
Oh, dx
Yan.
over dt.
And then we have here dx over dt.
dt.
Okay.
Cancel.
Yes, makancel yung dt. Kaya matira dyan is dy over dx. How about for the second derivative of y with respect to x?
The derivative of first derivative
Derivative of the first derivative of y, okay, over
over
dt.
dx.
Dx, sorry, dx. And then, that is all over dx over dt. Ayan
dt.
yung formula natin, tama ba? Okay,
Yes,
sige.
sir.
We will first need to determine yung value ng dy over dt. Okay, using our second equation, ano yung derivative ng y with respect to t? So, we can bring down 3. Then, we have here t squared. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Minus
Oh,
60. Okay. How about
ay,
yung dx over dt natin? We have here
2t.
2t minus 4.
4.
Correct. And then, we can now proceed to solving the first derivative of y with respect to x. We now have our data. So, we have here dx over, dy over dx. Okay, that is equivalent sa, okay, we have here 3t squared minus 60 all over 2t minus 4. Okay, that is our first derivative, no? But we can still further simplify this one. Okay, by dividing or by factoring out, okay, in the numerator, we can factor out t because t is common to both terms. Also, 3 is also common, no? So, we can factor out 3t. So, that would leave us, sa first term, we have t. Then, sa second term, we have negative 2. Okay? The same thing for the denominator. We can factor out 2 because 2 is common, no? So we are left with t minus 2. Okay? And that would make us cancel this t minus 2. So we have now our simplified dy over dx equivalent sa 3 over 2 multiplied by t. Okay? That will now become our first derivative. Question? Clarifications with this problem? We are not yet done. We will be also determining or calculating the value of your second derivative of y with respect to x. So, for the second derivative of y with respect to x, okay, that is d squared y over dx squared, okay, we now have this one, d over dt of dy, okay, sorry, dy over dx, all over dx over dt. Now, we will be determining or calculating yung derivative ng dy over dx, okay, with respect to t. So, that is 3 over 2 dito and then we have t. Then, dx and over dt natin is equivalent sa 2t minus 4. So, ano yung derivative ng 3 halves times t? that is basically equal lang sa 3 halves. Okay? Then we can copy 2t minus 4. Itong 2, we can bring that down. That would multiply to 2t minus 4. Or in the other words, our answer would be in this form. 3 over, okay, magiging 40 na yan kasi 2 times 2t minus 4. Or this would give us yung second derivative natin with respect to x. Okay? That would give us 3 over 40. We can also, ano no, distribute, or we can just uh, stick with this answer, or we can just also distribute yung 2. So that would give us 3 over 40 minus 8. So the same lang yan, ha. Is this your answer? Do we have the same answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Okay, how about itong number 2? Okay, let me just move this one, no? Also this one. Let me just move this. Okay, for number 2. Okay, consider the function of x comma y, which describe a surface in 3D space. So we have here our function of f, no? A function f with, sorry, this is function f as a function of x and y. So we have two variables here. So we do have here x squared e raised to the power of y plus sine of x times y. Now we are to calculate the first order partial derivative with respect to x. So ito yun, no? We need to determine the, so in other words, this one is just basically equal lang sa f of x, di ba? Or f sub x, no? That would give, that is equivalent lang sa partial derivative ng ating function with respect to x. Ito yun, no? Partial derivative of our function with respect to x. Now, for the second question, we need to also calculate the second derivative of the mixed partial derivative, or that is f of x sub y, or f, okay, f of x, f sub xy. Okay? So, this is just basically equal lang sa d of f square, because we are now in the second partial derivative. So, ang una natin kukunin is yung partial derivative of that with respect to x, and the next one would be the partial derivative of our function with respect to y na naman. Okay? So, these are our unknowns. So, first, let's start with the letter A. Okay, for letter A, okay, that is df over dx, or that is f of f sub x. So, that refers to the first partial derivative of our function with respect to x. So, any other variables, okay, any variables other than x, no, will be treated as constant. So, in the first term, eto, ey, or e raised to the power of y, is said to be a constant. So, we can set that aside. And x squared, since we are deriving this one with respect to x, so that has a derivative. So, basically, the derivative of x squared is 2x. Okay, plus, okay, sine xy. So, obviously, yung xy natin, or sine xy, can be derived because we have here x. So, parang sinasabi natin, if we will be treating y as constant, we are deriving, say, for example, 3 of x. Okay, considering your y is equivalent to 3. So, that has a derivative because we will be deriving this one, or partially deriving this one, with respect to x. So, in other words, ito, the derivative of sine xy, that is basically cosine product of x and y. And the derivative nitong nasa loob, or the derivative of xy, since y is a constant, we can set that aside. And the derivative ng x is simply 1. Okay, so therefore, we have this our second term. And in other words, our f sub x, or the first order partial derivative of our function with respect to x, will now become equal sa 2x e raised to the power of y plus y cosine of x times y. So, we now have our answer for problem number 1. problem letter A. So that is the first partial derivative of our given function with respect to x. Now for our second question, we need to determine the second order mixed partial derivative, or that is said to be f sub xy. Okay? So we have now second partial derivative of our x with respect to x and then with respect to y, or that is simply equivalent lang sa f of x then y. Okay? F sub x then y. So nakuha naman natin yung derivative ng f of x, f sub x pala, f sub x. So this is it, tama ba? Ito 'yun. So we will be deriving na naman that one. Okay? Itong 2x e raised to the power of y plus y cosine of x y, no? We will be deriving this one with respect na naman sa y. Okay? In other words, your d squared f over dy dx, or sorry, that will equivalent sa, yung 2x natin will now be treated as a constant. Okay? So we can set that aside. And derivative ng e raised to the power of y is just simply e raised to the power of y. Okay? Plus, so we now have two, in this term, we have now two functions that are both differentiable. We have here y, it can be differentiated because we will be partially deriving our function with respect to y. Also, we have here cosine xy. The fact that we have here a product of x and y is a differentiable function, then that means we have here a product of two differentiable functions. So we can actually use the product rule. Okay, we can use the product rule in solving this second term. Okay, so we can set, okay, y equivalent to u and cosine xy equivalent sa v. And then we have here u dv. Okay, we copy y, that's our u. And then we have, what is the derivative ng cosine xy? The derivative of cosine is
Negative,
negative.
negative.
Okay, negative xy. And yung derivative ng xy with respect to y is basically x. Is that correct? That is x, no? Okay, plus, okay, v du. Okay, we can copy the v, which is cosine xy. And then, the derivative ng y is simply equal to 1. Okay, so we do have here the second partial derivative, or second mixed partial derivative of our function with respect to x, then with respect to y, will now be equal to 2x e raised to the power of y. And then this one will just be equal to, okay, y times x times negative, magiging xy sine xy. Okay, plus etong cosine xy. So basically, this is our answer for the second mixed partial derivative. Okay, do we have the same answer? Yeah, do we have the same answer? Check natin ha.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's correct, no? I hope you were able to answer this one, no? Okay, problem number 3 tayo, class. Okay, evaluate the limit of our given function. Limit of 1 plus 2x raised to the power of 1 over x as x approaches to 0. Okay. So, what do you think yung procedure natin? Okay. First, I want to ask, ano yung uh, form of our f of x and g of x? Anyone? Di ba meron tayong tatlong form nun? We have f of x, then g of x, that is our first form. The second form is the product of f of x, then g of x. And the third form is f of x, then raised to the power of g of x. Tatlong forms yan, class. Which among these three are the given form, no?
Ano, sir?
Ha? Itong last form, tama ba? So, yung
Yes,
function
sir.
na binigay dito somehow resembles this form. Okay? So we can use the method on this third form, 'di ba? Kapag meron tayong ganyan, no, we will be letting n equivalent sa limit of our given function as x approaches to 0, okay, of 1 plus 2x raised to the power of 1 over x, no? And then from there we can take the natural log. We can take the natural log of n, and then we have here limits of x approaches to 0 of ln 1 plus 2x raised to the
2x.
power of 1 over x, no? Okay, etong 1 over 2x, 1 over x, we can bring that down. Okay, we can bring that down. So we now have here ln of n equivalent sa limit as x approaches to 0 of 1 over x ln of 1 plus 2x. Then we can proceed to changing this one into this form, itong f of x over g of x. Okay, so we have here ln of n equivalent sa limit as x approaches to 0. Itong 1 over x, we can take the reciprocal of that so that it will become our our denominator. Okay, so we now have the reciprocal ng 1 over x, obviously x, so we can put that in our denominator. And then from here, we can now apply the L'Hopital's rule. Okay, from here, we can apply the L'Hopital's rule. Okay, applying L'Hopital's rule, so we have here ln of n. Okay, ano yung derivative ng numerator natin? Anong derivative ng 1 over 2x ln? So that is basically 1 over 1 plus 2x. At saka yung derivative ng 1 plus 2x is simply equivalent sa 2.
2.
Okay, yung derivative naman ng 1 ng x is equivalent lang sa 1. Kasi if we will be deriving direct or substituting directly x here, so magiging ln 1 plus 0, and yung ln 1 is equivalent sa 0, and then all over 0, so we have 0 over 0. So that is an indeterminate form, no? Okay, that is an indeterminate form. So, kailangan natin applyan na yan ng LHR. Okay, or L'Hopital's rule. And then, we now have our ln of n equivalent sa 2 over 1 plus 2x. So, we now be applying, no? Or we will now be evaluating as x approaches to 0. So, we have here ln of n equivalent sa 2 over 1 plus 2 times 0. So, obviously, this one is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. So, therefore, we now have ln of n equivalent pala sa 2. Okay. Then, we will be exponentiating both sides, no? And that would give us n equivalent sa e raised to the power of 2, no? So, in here, dito na lang. So, we now have n equivalent sa e raised to the power of 2. Since n, no? Since n is equivalent to this one, okay? Since n is equivalent to this one, so therefore, yung limit pala natin as x approaches to 0 of our given function 1 plus 2x raised to the power of 1 over x is equivalent sa e raised to the power of 2. So, ito na yung magiging sagot natin for our given problem. Okay? Nakuha ba, class?
Yes po, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
sige. Dito na tayo sa problem number 4, no? Yung sa sheet work ninyo. Okay, now evaluate the limit of the given function e raised to the power of x minus e raised to the power of negative x minus 2x all over x minus sine of x as x approaches to 0. So, anong form nito, class? Among the three. Anong
First.
form to? Okay, this is the first form, no? Meron na tayong f of x over g of x. Kapag ganyan, we can now proceed to applying the L'Hopital's rule. Kasi kapag i-substitute natin yung x approaches to 0, this one is e raised to the power of 0, that is 1. Tama ba? Ito, minus e raised to the power of negative 0 or 0, that is also 1. Minus 2 times 0, that is 0. So, 1 minus 1 is 0. Sa numerator, 0 na yan. The denominator, this one is 0, minus yung sign of 0 is basically 0 din. Okay, 0 over 0, that is equivalent to 0. So we now have a 0 over 0, and that is an indeterminate form. Okay, so we can now apply the L'Hopital's rule. Okay, applying L'Hopital's rule, we have here a limits as x approaches to 0. So, ano yung derivative ng e raised to the power of x natin, class?
Same lang.
Same lang pa rin, no? E raised to the power of x. How about this one? That is negative of e raised to the power of negative x, at yung derivative ng negative x is simply negative 1, no? Okay? Nakuha ba dito?
Yes, sir.
Minus, ito, derivative ng 2x is 2. How about the derivative ng x dito sa denominator, that is equivalent sa 1?
Minus
Minus, derivative ng
cos.
sin x is cosine of x. Now, that we can try, no? We can try. Check natin. Okay, this is basically magiging positive. So, e raised to the power of 0 plus e raised to the power of 0, okay, minus 2 all over 1 minus cosine 0 is simply 1. So, ito magiging 1 plus 1 minus 2 all over 0.
Indeterminate gapon, sir.
Okay, indeterminate pa rin, 0 over 0. That is still an indeterminate form. So, we can now apply second L'Hopital's rule. Yes. We can now apply second L'Hopital's rule. So, we have here limits as x approaches to 0. So, ano yung derivative ng e raised to the power of x natin?
Same lang.
Okay, that is same pa rin, no? Then, ito magiging positive na, di ba? Positive, no? So, kasi negative times negative. So, ano yung derivative ng e raised to the power of negative x? Magiging negative pa rin ito. Negative e times raised to the power of negative x. Kasi yung derivative ng negative x pa rin is negative. So, although magiging positive na ito, pero it will still go back to, or magiging negative pa rin yan. Okay? Derivative ng 2, that is 0. So, yan na yung magiging numerator natin. Derivative ng 1 is 0. Okay? Minus, yung derivative ng cosine x is negative sin x.
Positive.
Okay? So, we now have e raised to the power of x minus e negative x all over magiging positive sin x to. Okay? Then, we can now check, no? So, we have here e raised to the power of 0, magiging 1 pa rin yan. Minus e raised to the power of 0, magiging 1 pa rin yan. So, obviously, magiging 0 ito. At yung sign of 0, that is still 0. So, indeterminate form pa rin yan, no? Then, we can proceed to applying naman third L'Hopital's rule. Okay, third LHR. So, pag-apply kayo ng LHR, walang limit kung hanggang saan at hanggang kailan. Basta makuha nyo yung limits na hindi magiging indeterminate. Okay? So, we now have limits as x approaches to 0. Okay? Derivative ng e raised to the power of x, still e raised to the power of x pa rin. Ang derivative ng negative e times raised to the power of negative x, magiging positive e negative x. Tama ba? At yung derivative ng sin x is cosine of x. So, try natin, no? So, e raised to the power of 0, that is 1, plus e raised to the power of negative 0 or 0, that is 1 also, all over cosine of 0, that is 1. So, mangyari, this is 1 plus 1 all over 1, and that is equivalent sa, ano to, class?
2.
2. Okay, 2 to, ha? So, therefore, yung limits pala natin, no, as x approaches to 0 of the given function e raised to the power of x minus e raised to the negative x minus 2x, okay, all over x minus sine of x is equivalent sa 2. So, yan na yung magiging sagot natin dito. Correct ba? So, try natin using calculator, no? So, make sure naka-radian mode kayo kasi merong sign dyan or trigonometric. Okay, e raised to the power of x. Let us just check lang, ha. Minus e raised to the power of negative alpha x minus 2 times alpha x all over, okay, x minus sine of x. Then, calc natin, 0 daw. Add lang tayo ng 0.0001. And then, for we have, 0. Sorry. 0 ba dapat? Balik. Well, bako na mali sulat. Okay, hold on ha. 2 naman, tama man. Okay, balik tayo ulit ha. Okay, calc 0.00001. Okay, matero na. Calc ulit 0.001. Okay, that is closest to ano to? 1.999 or that is 2. Calc 0.01. Ito na yun, mas maganda. Okay? This is equivalent sa 2. Okay, so that is correct. Okay? Question? Do we have the same answer for problem number 4, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good, no? I think you're ready na for your exam this Thursday. Okay, ito lang yung magiging coverage for your exam this Thursday, ah.